Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today we're in Exodus chapter 10. In this chapter there are two plagues that are listed. There's the plague of locusts and the plague of darkness. God spoke to Moses and he relayed a message to Pharaoh. He asked a question that he's never asked before. The question was this: how long will you refuse to humble yourself? Pharaoh was told, if you don't humble yourself, then a plague of locusts will come upon the land. Pharaoh was full of pride. He was full of defiance and rebellion. The people, however, they saw what had been taking place. And so they go before Pharaoh, his officials, and they say, let the people go. Don't you yet realize that Egypt is ruined? It's as though they were saying, we can see it. Why can't you? There are life skills that we all need to have in order to cope with life effectively. In other words, there's things that we need to learn in order to do life well. One of those lessons is we need to learn how to get along with people. If we don't, life is not only going to be difficult, sometimes it can almost be impossible. Another lesson is that we need to learn how to take care of our basic health needs. Most times people will not do things for you. You have to do it for yourself. You have to take responsibility for yourself. Another is that we need to learn the basics of using a computer today. In other words, when you're at school, you've got to use a computer. On the workplace, you have to use a computer. Even your cell phone is actually a mini computer in your hand. So these are simple skills that we all need to learn if we're going to get along in life today. But probably the most critical lesson that we all need to learn is that of being able to connect the dots. Why things happen in life. Connecting the dots is simply understanding how things relate to one another. It's cause and effect. It's the relationship between events in your life and the outcome that you're seeing take place in your life. For Pharaoh, he had hardened his heart and he had ignored all of the signs, and therefore the consequences that he was seeing from his decisions, he wasn't putting it all together. When our children were little and we used to go out to restaurants, we would always get a children's menu for them. And somewhere on that child's menu, there was a connect the dots. They would take their crayon and they would follow the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and they would trace out where those numbers would go, and finally a picture would emerge. That's what Pharaoh was not doing. He was so full of pride, defiance and arrogance and rebellion that even though everything was plain to everyone else, he was blind. In Proverbs chapter 27 verse 12, this is what this proverb tells us. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. A pastor once put together 5 questions that he gave to his congregation to say, before you make a decision, these are some questions you need to ask yourself. The first is this: a prudent person would always say, is the decision I'm about to make, is it wise? Is it something that I would see in Scripture as being, this would be God's will? The second question, what will I gain if I choose this option? The third question, who will be affected if things go well or if things do not go as planned? The fourth question, what will this do with my walk with Jesus? And finally, will I be pleased if others find out what I have done? Those aren't bad questions to ask before you make a decision going forward with something. Here in chapter 10, it's all about connecting the dots. How long will you refuse to humble yourself? God asked Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh's leaders, let the people go. Don't you yet realize? Can't you see what is taking place? The consequence of sin is always disaster. Pharaoh couldn't see it. His pride overshadowed everything that his natural eyes could see, and spiritually, he was dead. He had hardened his heart to a point where it didn't matter what the truth was, he didn't care. So many people today, they need to be prudent. They need to ask those 5 important questions, and they need to understand the relationship between the things that they do and the outcome in their life. There is always the truth of connecting the dots. Thank you for joining the Word for 2021.